There was a Spanish trip that was arranged by a former Spanish teacher who's now left the district, that she arranged it to take place July 8th, 2013 through EF Tours. This is not a trip that came through the administration or through the board to be approved. It's a summer activity and it is not a school-sanctioned activity. So I contacted EF Tours today and notified them that it is not a school-sanctioned activity. There are 3 students that have begun to pay on the trip already. We're going to bring those parents in and let them know that it's not something that came through us or through the school board as far as a sanctioned activity, so that they will have to work out how they proceed at this point.
And it was actually, the trip is 2013.
Did I say that wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, did you say 2013?
Yes.
I didn't hear you say, I'm sorry, I heard you say.
July 8, 2013.
I'm sorry.
Is that common that they do it kind of outside of school like that?
Oh.
After the last trip, where there were some issues and there were days that kids missed from school, and it was done at the time that the senior trip normally takes place in the April break. I did meet with this person and tell them that I would like it moved to the summer. There's 2 reasons why. There was a meeting that Kay and I and Donna went to that said that if a teacher is paid for working and teaching on days that she goes on a trip like this, then it has to be considered school sanctioned, and that the school is responsible for paying parts of the cost of the trip itself because it's a school activity, and that all kids then would have the right to get that same amount of money from the school towards the trip. So if it's run in the summer, it doesn't interfere with the senior trip. It's not a school-sanctioned activity, so we're not responsible for coming back with money for them. And now it allows the senior trip to be moved back to that time, and by moving the senior trip back to that time, it doesn't interfere with the athletic schedule near the end of May, which is Memorial time, which is when their sectionals take place. So we bumped everything back to where it had been the year before, and I told her that I would prefer it to be in the summers. I'm having an issue in the 9th grade in particular, girls more than boys, although there are a couple boys involved, with bullying. I have pulled the the 9th grade girls in at the request of a parent, because I had met with these same kids in the spring and seemed to have a productive outcome to the conversation, but I think that actually was more because the 8th grade trip was coming up in a month, and I had something that I could kind of hold over them, and the behavior got better. But a lot of it's in the form of cyberbullying, Facebook, and after the meeting with the girls, I sent home letters, and I have a copy of the letter if anybody would like to see it, to the parents saying that we're having these issues. We talked about why is it happening, what are some ways to help resolve this situation, and parents had to sign it and bring it back, so I know they've all seen it. That hasn't seemed to have much effect. In fact, the 10 girls that I had to have a second meeting for and give them a second copy of the letter are some of the most, are the high-level kids involved in this, so that obviously says something to me too as far as who's involved and who's not. But one of the main things that came out of the conversation is that some kids who aren't involved feel the stress every day of being in the class, being around the kids that are involved in the bullying. I'm working very hard to try to come up with ways to control it, but it's very difficult. I've asked kids, typically when it's a texting situation or an email situation, or today the parents that came in that were also telling me about the bullying, please make copies of it, save it, don't respond, block them from your site, give me the information so I have proof and something in hand. And I think it's very slow getting that message out so that people understand how to deal with the cyberbullying from their end, so that when they're a victim or where they see it happening, it comes back to me so that I can deal with it effectively. But I like to have evidence and proof in hand so that I can go with it, and it's kind of difficult. So I have started putting bullying situations in discipline files so that there's a verbal warning and there's record of it, and that does go home on Fridays to parents. I have to be very careful because one day these kids are friends and these kids are friends and they're against each other, and the next week it's kind of swapped to who's doing what with who. And I've got to be careful that I know that the witness that's reporting it is not reporting it because they're angry at these people, but there's truth to it. So it's a really difficult thing for me, but I just wanted you to be aware that I'm trying to work on it. We've been trying to work on it for about 5 months now, but I've also been told that this particular group of kids has been going on since grade school, that it's not a new thing, but that doesn't excuse it or make it something that we can just ignore and say, well, they just are who they are. Students have been participating in the College Fair SUNY Road Show. We have one tomorrow, we had one a couple weeks ago. We have about 50 to 60 kids that are going to these college informational sessions, expressing interest, which I think is pretty good. That's out of the junior and senior level. We have field trips planned to SUNY Potsdam for our Homework Excellence Club to see a drama play called Danny, King of the Basement. And then we have a SUNY Youth Group Theater Group coming to do 2 shows, one for our pre-K to 5s and one for our 8 through 12, and our 9 through 12th graders are going to take a field trip to Ogdensburg to see a drama production over there at their own theater. Student government has started, they're up and working. FFA has about 30 kids involved in the FFA program. Athletics, I kind of added up the numbers. I think we've got about 45% of our kids involved in athletics right now out of grades 7 through 12. So a lot of things are going on, you know, a lot of kids are involved, and yeah, it's pretty good so far.
Is that number 45% average number, or is that higher or lower than the past, or we don't think for that?
I don't know, I didn't do that stat last year. I do know during basketball season last year, we had a very large percentage of our kids, because when we did our pep rally during Spirit Week, and the kids came down, there was as many on the floor standing as there was in the stands. But our swimming team has won several matches this year, and that's a new trend. Our volleyball team has won a couple of matches this year, that's a new trend. And our soccer continues to be competitive, I guess would be my word that I would say with those teams. So I think that overall our coaches are doing a pretty good job with bringing up the quality of our kids.
I have a few things as well tonight. Back in the summer, I think it was one of the August meetings, I had raised the issue that our subcommittee on policies was stuck on 2 of the policies, 7220 and 7223. The first one deals with graduation requirements, early graduation. The second one deals with class rank, and I know we're all very eager to get back into those debates. But in order for Sue to talk to Erie BOCES, we really need to get those 2 resolved. So I don't know if people could look at these over the next 2 weeks and possibly come back for the discussion at the next meeting. If you need copies, I can have 2 additional ones here.
Could you tell us those numbers again?
7220 and 7223. 7223 is an EK one that's currently on the books. However, 7220 is an Erie BOCES one, so I don't believe you'll find that in your current manual.
I think we can have copies of that.
I'm sorry?
The one that we wanted to kind of like, right now we were going to discuss
Okay.
it, we had copies, so we don't know, just don't have it.
And I do have extras here. If you'd like an extra one tonight, I can make more people read that. As we talked about in the past, we've had an issue with students getting off the bus at the proper location. One of the issues that has come about is missed faxes. And previously our fax machine was on the counter across from the teacher mailboxes. And what would happen is, we're assuming now that teachers were doing the faxes, taking in the fax or sending a fax, and inadvertently picking up a bus pass. It happened to the same family now twice. The parents are very good about making sure that we have a fax from them almost every day before 1 o'clock. And to address that problem, what we've done is we've moved the fax machine behind Sherry's desk so that it's much more awkward, I think, for teachers to actually get there. And so far, it's worked out okay. But again, every time we get in a situation like that in the afternoon, I try to troubleshoot. Where did something go wrong? What broke down? This is a little bit more of a complex one. It took us until the second time to figure out what was going on. The first time, Sherry went through that fax machine, tried to find it, couldn't find it, and then she figured out that she could make it ring, and I swear for the first 3 or 4 days she probably lost 10 pounds. Every time that fax machine rang, she was jumping out of her chair, going over and checking. The problem is Sherry's not in there all the time. She's running the mail, going and finding students in classrooms. So hopefully this will alleviate at least the fax machine problems. Currently, our after-school program, we have a little over 70 students enrolled. Wow, is one way to put it. It's great to have the numbers, but with that many students, it has presented a problem on a couple of levels. Certainly having, it's completely grant funded. The grant was for 50 students. We're not uncomfortable going over 50. The problem is that it is very crowded with only 3 adults. It becomes very problematic for proper supervision. What we have done is with our 4th graders, which is our largest population, also the population that has the least amount of homework, to need help. We have switched the 4th graders. Half of them will come on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The other half will be on Wednesday and Thursday. And we're very comfortable having all the students on Wednesday. Wednesday we have our 2 outside agencies, Cornell Cooperative and Seaway Valley Prevention. So we have those 2 additional adults, so we've been able to break up Wednesday so we can accommodate all 70 in a much more responsible manner. Again, that starts this week. So again, it's been a change slightly to the program, but hopefully it allows us to better serve the students.
How was the response then from the parents?
None. So.
Great.
Well, one of the things too is that, in all honesty, the 4th graders at this time are still very young,
Yeah.
and truly to have them on the bus is 3 nights a week. Getting on the bus at 4:30 and getting home anytime between 4:30 and after 6, it makes a long, long week for a child that age to be out there on the bus. So that's also part of why I feel kind of good about this, that okay, it's 2 nights a week as opposed to the 3. Certainly these young ones get tired and they get a little bit cranky, and we saw that. And I saved the best one for last. I'm going to pass around some information based upon what we believe, based upon our test results from the past 2 years on the New York State assessments. We've been identified as a school in improvement status. That's officially unofficial at this point. We will not receive a letter on this probably until the end of November, early December. Unfortunately, Mandy got to hear me rant and rave last week as I watched or listened to a 2-hour webinar on all of this. The unofficial part and an official status came this past Friday when we received a phone call from a gentleman by the name of Jerry Swalnick. Jerry now works, I believe, strictly for state ed. He will be the appointee by the commissioner to work with our school. We have been identified as a school in need of improvement on what's called differentiated accountability. As a school-wide body, our students are making adequate yearly progress, AYP, right across as a whole group in both ELA and math for grades 3 through 8. Under that, the state looks at subcategories if you have a high enough population. They look at race. We're not an issue there because we don't have a high enough population of students of different races. But they do also look at economically disadvantaged based on the free reduced lunch status, and they also look at students with disabilities. Last year we failed AYP for students with disabilities, and again in 2010-11 we failed that for students with disabilities on ELA. What will now happen is, on this document, we will have a school quality review team. In the bottom, there are 3 different categories. We are a basic category. At least that is our information at this point. That's the information that we're going to be running with. We have 2 team members. It will be myself and Sherry White. It seems to make sense having the CSE and chairperson there. plus myself, since most of these students would fall under the elementary school. Jerry will be here this Friday morning. He is going to walk Sherry and I through the process of the school quality review, what we need to do, what he's going to be doing. He is our point person for all of this, well, for this part of it. There is another part, and I think I mentioned it prior, that when we at least began to think that we might be on this list, which was about 6 or 7 days before the title application was due. One of the requirements is that I set aside 20% of our title money to provide what's called supplemental education services. That amounts to around $31,000 of our title funding. I've already set aside, we can't use as we normally have used in the past. The webinar that I attended to last week, I believe, it revolved all around supplemental education services. There's quite a laundry list of providers that will service St. Lawrence County. We can't do it in-house. We cannot hire our own teachers to do this. We can't hire teachers from another district to come in. We are required to contract with people from this list. I believe it's going to fall under my responsibility to make contact with every provider that's on the St. Lawrence County list by phone, by email, and by written letter to see if they're interested in servicing our population. And if so, then working with Sue and probably the board, trying to set up contracts with those that we want to go with. Some of them are in person, they actually come to school or go to the homes to work with the children. Others are internet based, and we provide it to them at the home through internet. A lot of unknowns at this point. Again, we won't receive official notification of doing this until November, December. However, if we have leftover monies, I have to apply for a waiver in March on title to get that money put back into our general title. The only way that this gentleman will sign off on a waiver from Albany is if we start all of this contract business before we get our official notification. So basically, I'm going to ask that we're going into unknown territory, so I can kind of hopefully, if there's any money left over, which I hope there will be, apply that back in March. We're, again, very much in uncharted territory. There are, I believe, now 9 schools in St. Lawrence County. 7 of us are recently identified for the first time this year. There are 542 schools across the state that are now identified, up from under 100. And the prediction is next year there will be over 1,000 schools, school districts and school buildings that are identified, almost all primarily based upon students with disabilities.
So when you said there's a list of people, how many, I guess it doesn't matter how many people are on the list, but is it broken down into categories? Like one person
Yes.
would help with this group of people and one...
Some of them are very specific. I think, for example, Roberta Bosey's an employee there. Roberta still in Down. She's on the list, but I believe she is limited, maybe it's K to 8. The other part of this is we're identified as being in need for student with disabilities, but when we do our supplemental education services, those are not the first children I have to go to. We have to take our money and offer services first to any student that is free and reduced lunch. It has nothing to do with the group that's been identified, but because it's title funding, title funds have to go first to those students. And there's a per pupil average, and I think our amount that we can spend on a child is around $1,300. That doesn't give me a whole lot when you figure the number of students that we have that are free and reduced lunch. That doesn't give us very many students that we can serve, certainly to that full extent at $1,300. So, again, a lot of unknowns. I'm sure I'll be coming to you with a lot more information. And I'm not sure that any of it will be what I would consider good information. And we remain, even if we make AYP next year, if our students with disabilities do well, we remain on this list for 1 extra year and we have to set aside our 20% for another year. So even if we make improvement, we're still in that list. Lots of little things that I don't think very many of us are aware of.
What are they based on? You talked about there's going to be another 500 or a total of over 1,000 schools. What are they based on?
We have targets that we are required to meet in terms of the number of students that are meeting a level 3 or level 4 on the state assessments. And I was just reading this today, the goal is, and it's been extended, I believe, out to 2014, or that's the original goal, 2014. We should have what's called, I'm going to use the acronym, I can't remember what it stands for, it's an AMO. And that's basically the percentage of students that are meeting the required. Thank you. Too many acronyms going on. And that magic number is 200. And that means that 100% of all of our, 100% of our students meet that goal of being a level 3 or 4. They're backing off that some. No school really has a goal of 200 in writing in terms of meeting AYP. We try to get closer and closer every year. Our general population, our whole population has done that. It's our students with disabilities that are not meeting those magic numbers. We're not closing the gap for students with disabilities. And that's what they're finding. Again, that's the number one factor for all of the schools that have been identified so far. And again, for the next 500 that they anticipate identifying next year.
Gentlemen, we had a meeting last week with the clinic to find out where we were, what's going to happen. Currently, for those of you who know, the clinic has only been open with a PA the last 2 Tuesdays. When school opened, the only person here was Nicole again that had returned. Carthage had been working to try to get someone to basically come on staff again. What we were told as of this meeting is Joe Lamb, I don't know if any of you know Joe, will be coming from Harrisville in 3 weeks, and he will be our full-time provider working in the clinic on a daily basis. Until that time, we will continue to have Andrea on Tuesdays and Joe on Thursdays. What we asked them to do was to send a letter home to all families, because when they sent the applications out, we said, why are you sending the applications out when we don't have a care person here? They did it, and obviously there are a lot of people calling that can't get appointments. Now, when they sent the letter out, I know the elementaries went out on Friday. High school, did those go out today?
Today, they went.
Today.
Except for my PMOs.
Okay, letting parents know that there is a provider at the clinic on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that eventually will be full-time again. So, hopefully.
What's Joe's credentials, EPA or?
He's a PA.
Okay. Are we in Carthage primary service area? Is that where we people in Carthage or?
Let's see, last year, there was a rebid of the application, and Clifton Fine dropped us. And Carthage, Governor, and Potsdam had all initially put in to be considered. When Potsdam heard Carthage had put in, they pulled back, because obviously the originator of this was Walter Becker, and they did not in any way want to step on his toes. So they put back, they had never done it before. In going through it at the time, Carthage was ready with a provider, and Governor was not. So we chose Carthage. Don't know if it's been the best choice. I mean, you never know, but unfortunately we've lost providers frequently. Obviously Joe, who has been in Harrisville for many years in a row, obviously he had planned to stay, and it was not his choice to come here. But he will be starting here. So. Jim Buckley teaches biology. One of the new mandates at this point this year from the state is he has to give all parents and students a letter basically saying if you choose for your child not to dissect a fetal pig, then you have the right to send a letter back in. So we came up with a letter. They're not doing dissections until December if anybody wants to see it, but it hadn't been passed before the board just to show that we did it, so I knew how to hand all this around. It can be religious, moral, or just plain, it makes me physically ill to dissect a fetus. And what they would be given is an alternate assignment, computer dissection, so it's more of a 3D with questions. They would not be in the room during the whole lab, but they would in no way suffer a consequence because they couldn't do a lot or a real animal. So I'll just pass that around if anybody wants to see it. That's never been required by the law before. We had talked about before bus notes at our last meeting, and I said that we would try to find out from other districts. There are 2 districts that out of 10, 11 that responded back to me that do not allow alternate transportation. One district, wherever you get picked up is where you're dropped off. The other district that has some, they said you can choose 3 places. You can choose your home, childcare, and a third permanent change. So that was the other school. The other ones pretty much are in the same position that we're in. It's, you know, pick up, drop off. It could be moms, stepdads, changing frequently, calendars rolling. So we were just trying to figure out what to do with it. On any given day, we could get 30 calls a day for people changing their transportation. Hopefully with the fax machine being swapped out, that'll help some of the problems. We're still running into a couple times a week that children are either not going to the right place, or the bus notes are lost, or the teachers don't pick them up, or they're being taken somewhere and they don't even have a bus pass. So I don't have an answer. It just seems to have really hit ahead this year. It's always been a problem, but for whatever reason, it's been worse this year.
How many bus passes do you have a day?
Any given?
Any given day, on average?
Well, there's a list. We should have brought them. Do you want to go get them, actually? There's a list of permanent bus passes, first of all, which means it's not their home. And there's probably 50 people on that, 40 to 50. Now, some might be just Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Wednesdays, and then you can get anywhere from 20 to 30 a day. Sometimes, I mean, it varies. We get, some families will call 3 and 4 times a day and change where their children are going. The pre-K run gets constant calls and, you know, change where they're being picked up or dropped off. And sometimes it's why they're on the buses.
Is there a staff person that signs off on each of those passes?
It's the 2 secretaries and the 2 offices. And what's happening in some of the cases, you know, sometimes if it's a young child, the child may not even realize they even have a bus pass, or they forget. Teachers of the younger students don't always check the bags, to check every bag in the classroom. So then a child may not end up with a bus, you know, getting a bus pass. We've had numerous situations where substitutes come in half day. The teachers haven't picked up their bus passes yet, so the bus passes are still hanging in the office. We've had, you know, kids literally walking out the door with their bus pass, drop it before they get outside. You find the bus pass. I mean, it's all different reasons. We do have, like, a couple of families that it's their 3rd or 4th time that when we've gone to drop them off, they're not home. And then we do in those situations, because we have to bring them back if they're under 5th grade, do send letters that, you know, services will be called.
I break girl to myself. I brought all this from Sherry's desk. So I'll make sure I put it back. These are today's notes, just for bus passes. This box is what we've had so far this year. And again, these are the permanent bus passes. Again, on a regular basis, and that does not include 2 families of calendars.
And what do you mean by permanent? That means every day that they pick somebody up at location A?
No.
They're not off someplace else?
No, it doesn't mean every day. It could be every Wednesday. For example, one family, every Monday and Tuesday, a child gets off one place, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, another place. And again, these are all things that get kept track of on a daily basis. The permanent bus passes, for most, are a little bit easier. Again, there's one that's a calendar, and the calendar changes almost on a daily basis. So we think we've got it, we don't have it.
Do drivers get a daily printout?
What happens at the bus garage is they have the permanent printout posted, and then they also get the daily one. What they went to last year was just posting it. The drivers come in, they check it to see which of their students. What should happen is a child gets on a bus, they should have a bus pass. They give a bus pass to the driver of the bus they're getting on, and then a bus pass goes back to the bus that they should have been on, and they're not. That doesn't always happen, and we still have drivers who take kids places on their word.
Tom, how much of a problem is that for the drivers to drive and to keep track of who gets off where and stuff like this, along with doing everything else you're supposed to do?
It's kind of hard sometimes, because it depends, you may have 3, 4, 5 kids getting off at once. So you gotta know the kid, you know, actually visually knowing what their name is, to know for sure. And they swap out bus passes too, that's the other thing they'll do. Kids will get around to other kids, so it's hard.
It's also, if you have a substitute on that bus, they don't know who the children are to begin with, so if a child gets on a bus that isn't even theirs, they don't know it. On top of the kids then coming on the bus passes. So, I just said, look it up and we did. We had, Tom, I believe you were the one that asked about temporary coaching licenses. What we did is got this straight out of the coaching book handbook of what you need to do to be a volunteer coach. And what they need to do is they need to have they're the same basically as someone starting coaching. They have to have the first aid and the CPR in the first year. They have to also take the child abuse workshop and violence. And then by the second year, they will have to have been enrolled for the course, take the coaching course, and then in the second year taking it. So it's really the same as if they're coaching, even though they're volunteers and they're not getting paid. But there's no such thing any longer as a volunteer that's not trained. The reason being is because within the state, there were times when those volunteer people were left alone with children, basically, and they need to have the same training, health, safety, to be able to help and step up. So we will be including this on our volunteer application for anyone who wants to be a volunteer coach.
Where do you get a copy of that?
Secondly, this just came up, but I just want to make people aware, we were in our safety meeting last week, and Kathy had said that she had just gotten this new memo from the state that they have to have water must be available for children without restriction during all meals served in the cafeteria. And of course I said, oh Kathy, you can't mean that because, without restriction means they don't even have to get up and raise their hands. And then we had the kindergarten students in there, boy, they thought that was great, so run over to that big jar of water all at once. It does mean that every child can get up whenever they choose at any point to go and get a drink of water. So I'm just in the cafeteria. So even though, if they forgot their knife or their fork, they'd have to raise their hand and monitor Dover system. And I said to the woman, it seems foolish. I said the other day there was 20, and I'm not exaggerating, 20 first graders around there. I mean, they were trying to carry water, it was being spilled. I said somebody slipped and fell, and she said, I think it's ridiculous, but I didn't write the rule. So I'm just passing it on, so if you hear parents, and half the kids were sopping wet. So
How much do those little teeny water bottles cost? The little ones?
I don't know, I know they sell them for 50 cents.
Because you could just put one on every tray. If they don't open it, then they'd be fine.
But who would pay for it?
Well, that's my question.
Oh, okay.
Where's it gonna go? Do they take it home or what?
That's right, at this point, what we have to have and the woman said, well, you could put a picture on each table. I said, have you seen 5 and 6-year-olds pool?
Yeah, that's what I know.
That was,
But the thing is, if the bottle is there, it's available, and if they really want it, they'll ask somebody to help them open it, and if they don't open it, then put it back in the thing and go around again.
right. But I think honestly, if you do that, not that I don't want the kids to have water, I think most of them will open them, more as a thing to.
Well, it might be, well, at first, it's gonna be a big hot thing, but I think they get sick of it.
And I do think that it has calmed down some in the cafeteria, but I'm just letting you know because I just see a lot of kids slipping and falling.
Yeah.
And trying to carry those cups for some of them is, and we don't have a person in the cafeteria to be able to deliver the water whenever they want it. They can help to some degree because we usually have at least 3 staff manning the cafeteria during any grade level. So we will be having our evacuation drill, emergency go home drill. We're not really going home. It's coming up actually this week sometime. It's unannounced, but we do let parents, especially in the elementary, know that it will be happening. So if they hear anything over the radios that people tend to listen to that the school is being evacuated, we are going to our evacuation site and running a drill. So Carol obviously is our CPO person. She is here now with us. I think Roger might have one more drop-in visit, and then Carol's officially in the office 60%. So it's when we're working out our schedule to see, when we'll be doing things and what we're doing. I'm getting used to not having to stay there every day. So we'll be emailing her frequently, I think. In your packets, and I just want to point this out, there's a parent thank you letter, and we don't often get those. And I wanted to just put out the number of staff that the person did thank, and it was just a very nice thing to see. And if you know the young lady, she's a wonderful girl. So that was very positive. We were also excited to get senior play advisors. 2 people stepped up to be the senior play advisor, and we also had a group of teachers step up to do National Honor Society this year. So that was another positive. That's all I have for general.
Can I address Stacey's comments on the Herrick sentence? Can I address the Herrick sentence?
I was wondering if there was an issue with that.
I was approached by a student to have it as a fundraiser, and then later it was Tammy's daughter, and then Tammy called me on Thursday, and we had said yes, we'll go ahead, and we had arranged for it to be from 7:30 to 8 in the morning on Monday morning, and that was Friday. So on Friday, when the news came out that it was, I had heard it the day before, but then it was said on the news again, and Rob White confirmed, that's over in Jefferson County, the referees had not let them play because they had hair extensions and it was considered jewelry. Mrs. Brewer then called Section 10 to get a clarification, and the same guy, did you talk to Carl?
Yes.
Okay, he did not have an answer quickly for us, but said that we would probably follow whatever they had done because they had set kind of this precedent. So Mrs. Brewer and I made the decision that rather than have the girls come Monday morning and make their donation, put the hair extensions in their hair, and then get to the game that afternoon to be told, no, now you take them out, that we postponed it. We did not cancel it. We would, in fact, Lori's suggestion was if they're not going to allow it, that we wait till the end of the athletic season, which is around the 3rd week of October, and then do it in they last about 2 weeks, I was told, to then do it so that the kids could do it between seasons so that nobody would tell them that they had to take the hair extensions out. So it was not canceled, it was postponed with the idea that it will still be allowed. And the other thing that I mentioned is that I don't see really a reason, if we don't know ahead of time, that other kids beyond just athletes could do it, that it doesn't have to be the athletes, but because we were putting it together in such a short time, it just made sense. I had told Mercedes that if she had wanted to, if the person wanted to come, the kids were more than willing to go out of study halls. I just wasn't going to give permission for them to leave academic classes. And then Tammy clarified, it's a very short process. And
it's like 2 seconds.
Get most everybody done in like half an hour. It wouldn't be a big deal. So that's why we put it to before school. So the plan is now to do it then, but if they want to come back and it's been cleared up, we just didn't want kids paying $10 for a donation and being told that afternoon, no, you got to take it out. That would make me mad. And knowing teens, it would make them mad. So.
Okay.
The other thing, for those who don't know, it's for breast cancer awareness, which the entire month is breast cancer awareness month.
And all the money is kept locally, so it's not like going out of our district, it's kept right here. So that makes it a good plus.
And it was nice because it was student generated. It was Mercedes' request to organize this and do this. It wasn't, from the top down, which I thought was great for her to be, taking the step on that.
So does section 10, I wasn't sure, the sections of 10 say yes,
We can,
will allow extensions?
Yes.
As long as there's no jewelry involved in the hair extension. And it must be that maybe over in Jefferson County, the girls that haven't put it in had beads or something too. I don't know, we just saw it on the news, and just weren't willing to take a chance that
and the hair shop is willing to reschedule, he just needs to know ahead of time. And they did have a soccer game that night, and there were several girls that had hair extensions, not from our team, but the opposite team. The refs had no clue about it, and they were allowed to play with them. But for the same reason as Mrs. Varian said, we didn't want the girls to get there and either not be able to play or have to
Right.
take them out, so.
Okay. Is there anything else before we go into executive session? Can I have a motion to enter executive session?